not him. I know my discussion. I promised President Buhari. I know my discussion with me and Nnamdi Kanu. I was the first that saw him in 2016. I was the first that saw him when he came from Kenya. I know my discussion with him. The DSS are there. I had my discussion with him. Remember, I own the Sun newspaper. On 4 occasions, President Buhari wanted to prescribe Sun newspaper, that the only newspaper that are supporting Nnamdi Kanu. I'm the owner. It's not owned by Igbos.
All right, folks, buckle up, because Nigeria's political arena just dropped more plot twists than a Netflix political thriller on Fast Forward. We've got U.S. military threats flying across the Atlantic, a fresh life sentence for Nnamdi Kanu shaking the Southeast, and Senator Orji Kalu stepping into the spotlight with reactions bold enough to make Washington sit up straight. Welcome to Global Pulse News, where we break the noise, amplify the truth, and sprinkle in just enough attitude to keep the news digestible and wildly entertaining. Let's dive headfirst into 8 heavyweight facts shaking up the country right now. When Donald Trump, yes, the same Trump now back in the headlines with a megaphone louder than a stadium speaker, announced that the United States might take military action in Nigeria, you could practically feel the shockwave ricochet through every political corridor in Abuja. This wasn't some casual diplomatic comment. Nope, this was a full-blown, chest-thumping warning that the U.S. could go in guns blazing over what Trump described as the killing of Christians in Nigeria. That's the kind of statement that makes embassies tense up and newsrooms hit the red alert button. Now, Nigeria didn't sit back and sip tea. Not a chance. The Nigerian government fired back with a straight-faced response, "We're a sovereign nation, thank you very much, and we'll handle our internal issues ourselves." That's diplomatic speak for mind your lane. And honestly, you can't blame them. No nation wants another country threatening to roll in troops like it's an action movie. Nigeria has 36 states, 200+ million people, and an identity built on fighting for independence, so foreign intervention is always a sensitive topic. But here's where things get interesting. Analysts across the US, Europe, and Africa all agree the violence in Nigeria isn't some straightforward religious war. It's layered, it's messy, and it's driven by everything from land disputes to poverty to local extremist groups taking advantage of weak policing in certain areas. So the idea that this is simply Christians being killed for being Christians doesn't quite match the complex reality on the ground. Still, Trump's comments had political horsepower, especially in the U.S. Congress, where several lawmakers have been pushing the Biden and Trump wings to pressure Abuja harder. Combine that with the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom recommending Nigeria be labeled a country of particular concern, and boom, you've got one of the most dramatic diplomatic standoffs of 2025. And if you thought the international tension was explosive, wait till we hop into a courtroom where things went from legal to legendary real fast. Fact number 3 packs more shock than a courtroom gas leak. If Nigeria had a scoreboard for political drama, the courtroom verdict sentencing Nnamdi Kanu to life in prison would have lit up the entire board. This wasn't just another judgment. This was one of the most high-profile decisions in decades, involving the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, a figure loved, hated, feared, respected, criticized, and mythologized all at once. The court found him guilty of terrorism-related charges, inciting violence, promoting secession, encouraging armed attacks, and, according to prosecutors, teaching followers the basics of explosive device creation. With all that stacked up, prosecutors went full throttle and demanded the death penalty. But the judge, weighing both global pressure and domestic tension, opted for life imprisonment instead. That was the legal equivalent of choosing a grenade over a missile, still explosive, but less catastrophic. The courtroom scene itself was dramatic. Kanu stared down the bench, rejecting the legitimacy of the court. His body language screamed defiance, his statements echoed political rebellion. But whether you love him, fear him, or think he's misunderstood, the reality is this verdict dropped into the Southeast like a boulder into a lake, and the splash is still echoing. For communities in places like Njuning, Aba, and Owerri, this verdict wasn't just legal news, it was a seismic emotional event. Some people celebrated it as justice being served, others saw it as political repression, and many more simply feared what this would mean for the region's fragile peace, economy, and day-to-day survival. But behind the scenes, political operators, including Senator Orji Kalu, were already talking about the political option. Translation, negotiations, back channels, and deals that never make the headlines. Because in Nigeria, high-tension conflicts rarely end with just court rulings alone. Now, if the courtroom drama wasn't big enough, buckle up, because fact number 3 shows how Orji Kalu stepped into the spotlight with a response bold enough to turn heads in Washington and Abuja at the same time. Senator Orji Uzor Kalu didn't mince words when he hit the Sunday politics stage. You know how some politicians sidestep controversy like they're tiptoeing around puddles? Yeah, Kalu walked straight through the storm with cowboy-level confidence. Not only did he dismiss the idea that Nigeria is collapsing under insecurity, but he also boldly claimed that many attacks and kidnappings happening across the nation are politically motivated. His argument? Every election cycle brings spikes in violence, not because of foreign conspiracies alone, though he hinted at those, but because powerful political actors allegedly fund chaos to discredit the ruling government and influence election outcomes. According to Kalu, 2027 is already casting a shadow over 2025. And in his eyes, the insecurity uptick is part of that classic dirty politics cycle. Now, here's where eyebrows shot up. Kalu said outright that he believes Nigeria is dealing with both internal sabotage and international meddling. He implied there are vested interests, both inside the country and out, that don't want Nigeria stable, strong, or influential. And while he avoided dropping names because apparently the intelligence community knows who they are, he made the point loud and clear. Someone's stirring the pot on purpose. And about Trump's military threat, he went full pro-America mode. Not exactly subtle. He basically said that if America wanted to collaborate with the Nigerian government to destroy terrorists, that's cool, as long as Abuja gives the green light. He's not cheering for invasion, but partnership, intelligence support, surveillance tech, bring it on, he said, calling it a very good thing. With his political connections and his reputation as one of the closest allies to President Nnamdi, his words carried weight. Whether you agree with him or not, millions of viewers felt the sting of his message. Nigeria's insecurity isn't just insecurity. It's strategy, sabotage, and power play rolled into one complicated mess. If you're wondering where the government stands in the middle of all this chaos, fact number 4 takes us straight to Aso Rock, where Nnamdi dropped an order that shook up the VIP lifestyle more than any luxury tax ever could. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced that police officers assigned to VIPs were being pulled back for core policing duties, it was like cutting the guest list at a billionaire's birthday party. Suddenly, ministers, business moguls, political hit-hitters, and wealthy celebrities were being told, yeah, you won't have 12 armed officers following you to brunch anymore. And honestly, it was long overdue. For years, Nigerians complained about the fact that thousands of police officers who should be patrolling streets, responding to emergencies, or fighting organized crime were instead guarding individuals who had enough money to guard themselves. It made the system top-heavy, unequal, and downright impractical. Tinubu's message came after an intense, high-stakes meeting with service chiefs, the kind of meeting where everyone's face looks like they haven't slept in 36 hours and the air smells like panic, determination, and burnt printer ink. According to the transcript of Sunday Politics, the president wasn't just talking tough. He demanded speed, precision, and absolute resolve from all security heads. And this wasn't a symbolic order, it was a reshuffling of manpower on a national scale, sending officers back into communities, back into patrol duties, back into crime-fighting roles desperately understaffed for years. Critics say, let's see how long this lasts, because the last time this directive was issued under another administration, VIPs found loopholes, paid under the table, and got their officers reinstated quietly. But Tinubu's version came with a tone of finality, and the Senate appears ready to back him with recruitment pushes for military and police agencies. The bigger message, Nigeria is stretching its security structure to breaking point, and the government knows it. But symbolically, this move hit the right nerve with the public. It felt like an attempt, even if imperfect, to prioritize average citizens over elite convenience. So the president is shaking things up at the top, but what about the political opposition? Fact number 5 brings us the PDP's blistering response. And trust me, they came with smoke. The People's Democratic Party didn't just criticize the government, they went full flamethrower. At a press conference detailed in the Sunday Politics transcript, the PDP's national publicity secretary didn't mince words. He slammed Tinubu's administration for being slow and magical, basically suggesting the government was operating with the efficiency of a malfunctioning wand in a Harry Potter knockoff movie. The PDP argued that insecurity wasn't just rising, it was exploding. Mass kidnappings, school closures, worship center attacks, assassinations, and rural violence. And instead of decisive national action, the PDP claimed the government was offering quick fixes, surface-level reactions, and half-hearted policy shifts. One of their biggest fears? School closures. They warned passionately that if schools in vulnerable regions shut down, terrorists would win. After all, extremist groups have historically targeted education to control populations. If the schools close, you've already surrendered. And honestly, they had a point. They demanded the government accept external help if needed, even from international partners, or honorably resign. Political grenade thrown. The PDP went further, arguing that Nigeria's security agencies lack coordination, intelligence sharing, personnel, and modern technology. They pushed for a complete restructuring of the nation's security architecture, something Nigeria has talked about for nearly 2 decades but never executed fully. Their message resonated particularly with parents, teachers, and religious groups who feel the fear firsthand whenever attacks spike. Whether you think the PDP is genuinely concerned or just playing politics, one thing is undeniable. Their criticism struck a chord. And if you think the heat was strong here, wait until you hear fact number 6, because Orji Kalu didn't just defend his party, he accused politicians of sponsoring insecurity themselves. Here's where the broadcast hit maximum voltage. During his interview, Kalu dropped a political bomb so heavy it could rattle the roof tiles on the National Assembly complex. He stated clearly that the insecurity sweeping across Nigeria is being sponsored by political actors who want to destabilize the government before the 2027 elections. Yep, you heard that right. He said politicians are buying mercenaries, funding bandits, and strategically amplifying chaos to discredit the administration. And he didn't stop there. He said international actors are also involved, people who don't want Nigeria to rise. Now, whether you believe him or not, the weight of such a statement is enormous. He said the intelligence community knows the individuals involved, but he refused to name them. He insisted he wouldn't step on the job of DSS, military intelligence, or the police, but he made sure viewers understood the threat is real, political, and multi-layered. He even referenced past administrations, claiming Jonathan faced the same sabotage and that Nigeria's enemies are both inside and outside. It sparked debates nationwide, from beer parlors to high-level diplomatic groups. For many Nigerians, this hit home. They've long suspected that insecurity spikes around election seasons aren't random. Kalu basically confirmed the whispers many believed for years. And while the political accuses were flying, fact number 7 takes us to something even more personal. Kalu's emotional take on Nnamdi Kanu, the Southeast, and what he believes must happen next. When the topic shifted to Nnamdi Kanu, his tone changed instantly. He became emotional, reflective, and surprisingly personal. He shared that he was the first high-ranking politician to visit Kanu in 2016 after he arrived from Kenya. He talked about begging the Buhari administration to release Kanu on bail. He talked about negotiating behind the scenes, even offering his home at one point as a bail location. Then he highlighted a deeply painful part of the conflict: the thousands of people, Igbo youths known as EOs, police officers, business owners killed during the height of IPOB agitation and military crackdowns. He said over 30,000 young people lost their lives in the chaos surrounding the secessionist movement. He said shop owners were destroyed, families displaced, and entire communities traumatized. He insisted that now is not the time for noise, riots, or emotional outbursts. Instead, he called for sober reflection and political negotiation. He urged the Southeast to stop attacks, stop protests, and focus on strategic engagement with the federal government. His message: we must solve this politically, not violently. Kalu pledged to personally lobby the Attorney General and the President to consider political solutions even as the appeal process begins. Whether you agree with him or not, his message carried emotional depth and political weight, especially given his role in national politics and his established relationship with the President. And now we land on the final point, fact number 8, where everything connects: the insecurity, the politics, the court cases, and the global pressure. The question is, what happens next? When you zoom out from all the drama, something bigger comes into focus. Nigeria is standing at one of the most critical crossroads of its modern history. Think of it as a 3-lane highway with every lane experiencing heavy traffic at the same time. Lane 1, internal security. Kidnappings, attacks, banditry, and political sabotage are stretching the country's security architecture past its limits. Tinubu's administration is trying, but the scale of the problem is massive. Lane 2, political stability. The 2027 election is already shaping the behavior of today's political players. Accusations are flying, tensions rising, alliances forming, and strategies unfolding in the shadows. As Kalu suggested, some actors may be fueling chaos for political gain. Lane 3, international pressure. The U.S. military threat, global watchdogs, human rights organizations, and diplomatic partners are all watching Nigeria closely. A designation as a country of particular concern could hammer the economy, weaken trade, and strain diplomatic ties. In the middle of all this, Nigerians just want safety, stability, and clarity. The crisis isn't just violence, it's perception, politics, policy, and power struggles, and the country's next moves will determine whether the situation improves or spirals. The next few months, critical. The next election cycle, explosive. The international dimension, growing. And the people, watching closely. If you found this breakdown sharp, bold, and packed with real insight, do me a solid. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and drop your hottest take in the comments. Is the US threat legit? Is Kanu's sentence fair? Are politicians really sponsoring insecurity? I want to hear you. This is Global Pulse News, where news gets flavor.